happen is very similar. It's the Jekyll and Hyde syndrome, but I'm now going to take it a step further so you understand how it is. I had a client, I believe she's since written a book about this. She was in a car accident, and from the concussion in her head, something happened that was unbelievably horrible to her. She remembered. There are several instances in which there are multi-generational ritualistic abuse in order to perpetuate a line of people that behave the same way. They intermarry and it keeps perpetuating it. In one case it is for government. There are government sex slaves that can absolutely not remember what they did. If the high officials are pedophiles, there are children that absolutely cannot remember what happened because they have fractured the personality into two. And oftentimes in the feminine line, they're beauty queens. They start with little tiny girls that are beauty queens, the mothers were beauty queens, and so on. Or the grandmother was Mississippi, Mrs. Mississippi. Well, that sounds strange. Let's try Mrs. Kansas, Miss Kansas. Miss Mississippi sounds like I'm stuttering. And by the way, this speech, like for instance, Serge, your breathing is not. Your breathing is showing me it was a very early, very severe trauma. Jeff also. There is trauma there that's hidden, but I hear it in your breathing. And it comes out in your speech.
And then they're not conscious of what they said.
The government has multiple purposes with it. The sex is just one thing.
Right. Because
nobody can ever reveal it, and there is an additional benefit. If a child is brutalized, horribly brutalized, they're full of bruises, their little body is torn and bleeding. You switch personalities, it's gone. You send them home, it looks like nobody touched them. Okay, and it's gone. And how it begins is that there is trauma inflicted over and over and over. This lady that I worked with, because she remembered, she had all of her life thought that she was a virgin when she got married, that she, that she's been a faithful wife in a nice little town, that she never really had an exciting life. Meantime, triggers would set her off. And so government have deliberately trained it, like in this woman's case, when her baby was born, the newborn baby was born, two men in dark suits walked into her hotel room and held the baby's breath till the baby was blue. Held the baby's mouth and nose till the baby was blue, to start the trauma experiences from day one. They regularly inflict trauma to keep the personality separate. The subconscious mind has regularly exposed you to similar events to keep your masculine and feminine separate. When they're separated, then you're totally controllable. Now, we were discussing alcoholism. I was discussing this with one of you, alcoholism with one of your parents. And the issue is that people that marry the alcoholic usually look like roses, okay? They smell like roses. The person that's on the alcohol, they smell terrible, bad, good parent. They do that on purpose. It's a method of control. That usually those are people that had a childhood that was out of control. Out of control. Bad things happened, you never know when. Maybe you had a raging father that would suddenly come home drunk, or not drunk, just start beating you because this is his bad day at the office. So it was an uncontrollable universe. They marry deliberately people that they can control through addictions. And so then they look like Mr. Good Guy, and this is Mr. Bad Guy. Normally in their family, mother was comforting them, father was beating them. Good parent, bad parent. Also, when they feel unlovable, or they feel little and unacceptable because they were beaten by peers or rejected by peers, they feel powerful when they are the better person in the couple. And they continually, caretake the other one. They don't feel lovable, so they settle for feeling needed. So let's go back now to look at the deliberate splitting. So the government does it. That's number one. Number two, where it is done, is where families benefit from the prostitution of their children. And there's some of you here among us that has been in that boat. Okay, fabulously wealthy income coming in from high statesmen, and here we prep our children and then we give them to you worldly wise so that you can use and abuse them. That is another incredible thing where if they can split the child, it is better off for them, but not all families manage to split like that. There are triggers. One of the triggers is spinning. They spin children. And when they spin children, when the child is done spinning, and incidentally, my brother, the very incredibly sad thing to my heart, and I can hardly even speak about it, is that there are leaders among the Indian nations that are selling their Indian children. And it breaks my heart. To even think about that. But we were speaking of the corruption amongst the Indian people. And some in the very, very top leadership are providing them with little children from the Indian people. And they're Indians doing that. The trafficking of children is often done in a way to deliberately confuse the child. Again, I had a client, and he was in the FBI, and he was talking to me because they continually were trying to kill him. But he would, for instance, he'd put a hair over the top of his cupboard, go out, and he'd come back, and he'd see that somebody has opened the cupboard. He'd paste the hair over the top, so if somebody opened the cupboard, he could tell. And they were poisoning his vitamins, they were poisoning his food, and coming into his house. The closer he got to the root of a little child sex ring. And what it was is there was a little preschool, and I believe this was in Alabama. I can't remember, it was in Alabama where I worked with him. And there were tunnels that led out from the school under the ground. So parents would take their little children, they'd drop them off at school, and then Mickey Mouse would come and say, "Come, let's go and play," and take the children through the tunnels that led out to a distant airfield where they got on a helicopter, and they were taken off to clients. And the little child would come back at night and say, "Mommy, I went away in an airplane and Mickey Mouse took me." And Mommy would be cooking and saying, "Boy, that Johnny just has such an imagination." So my child makes small talk with him, so she'd say, "Was he at school, sweetheart?" "Yes, Mommy, he came and took me from school." And as he got closer to solving this, they actually bulldozed the school down. But he dug up the tunnels, and in the tunnels he found little children's backpacks and a little shoe and things that had been lost in the tunnel. My brothers, the point I'm trying to make is that there is a deliberate infliction of trauma on a regular basis to keep the split apart. This is exactly what has happened in the cosmos. When you can split it apart, you can manipulate one or the other.